Welcome back to The Explainer. I am so pumped to dive into this one today. You know, if your app is online but your automation workflows, QA tests, or scrapers are just totally failing, the problem might not actually be your code. It might be a hidden CAPTCHA. Today, we are putting on our web detective hats to hunt down these invisible roadblocks directly from the browser console, so you can finally build those truly unbreakable automation flows. Let's get into it.
So here's the ultimate question, right? How in the world do you automate a CAPTCHA you can't even see? I mean, we've all been there. You write the perfect script, set up your headless browser, hit run, and nothing. It just grinds to a dead halt. The page looks completely normal, but under the hood, some invisible widget is silently blocking every single request. It is literally the worst. How do you feed the right data to a solver like CAPTCHA II when the parameters are completely out of sight? Well, that is exactly what we're going to solve today.
Okay, real quick, here's our game plan. First, we'll talk about unlocking CAPTCHA automation, then identifying your specific CAPTCHA type. After that, we'll extract those key parameters, handle tricky iframes and lazy loads, and wrap up by troubleshooting common extraction errors.
Section 1. Unlocking CAPTCHA automation, the prerequisite to solving. I absolutely love this analogy. You cannot solve a lock if you don't know the exact type of lock you're dealing with or, where the keyhole is actually hidden. Before an awesome tool like CAPTCHA AI can swoop in and return a solved token, you've got to do the groundwork. You have to manually extract the specific parameters from the page, stuff like the site key, the action, maybe some dynamic values. You have to feed the solver the right intelligence, and the fastest, most reliable place to gather that intel, your browser console.
Moving on to Section 2, identifying your CAPTCHA type, the web detective's first move.
Look, if you're automating any page, the F12 key is basically your best friend. Pop open DevTools, head straight over to the Console tab, and run a quick JavaScript detection snippet. This lets you see exactly what global variables are loaded. Like if you spot an object fork a CAPTCHA, boom, you immediately know you've got a Google-based widget on your hands. Running that quick check is hands down the fastest way to profile your suspect before you write a single line of scraping logic.
All right, Section 3, extracting key parameters, suspect profiles, and hiding spots.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting because we have a hard dividing line between two completely different hiding spots. It's actually why so many developers get stuck. On one side, you have DOM-based CAPTCHAs. These are found right there in the HTML structure. Think reCAPTCHA v2. On the flip side, you have network-based CAPTCHAs, which are hiding out inside API responses, like gtest. These require completely different mental models. Seriously, if you're digging through the DOM trying to find gtest parameters, you are going to be searching forever. Let's break down the classic DOM-based suspect, reCAPTCHA v2. What exactly does the solver need, and where does that data actually live? Well, first up, it needs the Google key, which is just the site key. You'll find this living very comfortably inside the data-site key attribute on the .gReCAPTCHA div. Next is the page URL, which is simply your current window.location.href. Occasionally, if you're on a Google-owned site, you might also need an optional data S attribute. And finally, you gotta tell the solver if the widget is invisible, which is flagged by the data size equals invisible attribute right on the widget itself. It's super structured and honestly pretty easy to pull.
But wait, what happens when the widget really doesn't want to be found? For invisible widgets like reCAPTCHA v3, there is absolutely no visible HTML div to inspect. You've got to dig a little deeper. For v3, you need to check the actual script tags in the head of the document, or intercept the reCAPTCHA.execute call. That's how you find the site key and the action parameter. You need both of those, plus the page URL. It's a similar story with Cloudflare Turnstile. If it's being rendered dynamically via their JavaScript API instead of a simple div, you have to search the raw page source for the turnstile.render calls to grab that elusive site key.
Okay, let's switch gears to the network-based side with gtest. This is a much more active workflow. You aren't just inspecting HTML elements anymore. Step 1, open the network tab in your DevTools. Step 2, filter the network requests by the terms register or get.php. Step 3, click through those filtered requests until you hit the JSON response. Inside that response, you are hunting for two very specific string values, GT and challenge. You extract those, fire them over to CAPTCHA AI, and boom, you've bypassed the problem. It is all about monitoring the network traffic here.
Section 4, handling iframes and lazy loads, uncovering deeply hidden keys.
So, have you ever run a detection script on a page and it turns up completely blank?
even though you can clearly see a CAPTCHA challenge just staring right at you. Yeah, it's infuriating. When that happens, it's highly likely the widget is buried inside an iframe. The main DOM doesn't know the site key because, well, the site key lives inside the document of the iframe. The fix is actually pretty simple. You must inspect the iframe's source attribute. Often, the parameters are passed right there in the URL query string, or you might just need to switch your console context directly into the iframe to grab what you need. And then we have the lazy loaders. A lazy loaded CAPTCHA is a security widget that basically refuses to exist on the page until a specific user interaction happens, like, say, clicking a submit button or scrolling to the bottom of a form. If your automation script looks for the site key immediately on page load, it's going to fail because the widget hasn't even been born yet. The technical solution for this is honestly brilliant. You utilize a mutation observer in your code. This tells your script to actively watch the DOM for changes, so the literal millisecond that CAPTCHA node is injected into the page, you intercept it, grab the key, and keep moving. Which brings us to our final section, Section 5, Troubleshooting Extraction Errors, Quick Fixes for Missing Keys. Let's just rapid fire through the most common extraction failures. Problem: you're dealing with a dynamic reCAPTCHA v3 and the site key is nowhere to be found. Fix: stop looking at the DOM and use the reCAPTCHA.execute intercept method in your script. Problem: the data site key actually exists, but it's completely empty. Fix: the page is using a JavaScript API to render the widget, so go search the page source for reCAPTCHA.render or turnstile.render calls. Problem: your getest parameters are totally missing. Fix: remember the mental model we talked about? Switch over to the Network tab and filter for register endpoints. Boom, actionable fixes for immediate problems. Before we wrap up, let's touch on a few advanced points from the FAQ. First off, if a CAPTCHA is purely JavaScript rendered, simple HTTP requests just aren't going to cut it. You absolutely require a real or headless browser to execute the JS and reveal those keys. Next, and this is a big one, what about reCAPTCHA Enterprise? Well, Enterprise actually uses the exact same site key extraction methods we just went over. You can spot it easily because its script URL contains enterprise.js instead of api.js. Just remember, when you send that extracted site key over to CAPTCHA AI, you absolutely must pass the enterprise equals 1 flag so the system knows exactly how to handle it. All right, we have covered an incredible amount of technical ground today, from DOM inspection to network intercepts and hunting down those sneaky iframes. So I'll leave you with this final thought. Have you identified the precise locks blocking your automated workflows? Because if your forms or QA tests are failing, it might just be a caption nobody is monitoring. I highly encourage you to open up your DevTools right now, inspect that problematic page, and put these web detective skills to work. Once you find the keyhole, tools like CAPTCHA AI can finally unlock the door. Thanks so much for joining me on The Explainer today, and hey, happy automating!